I basically want to welcome everybody to Can My Child Play Conversations. And basically, this was just kind of offset of the questions that we didn't ask. And I think that as a parent, all parents in America, we ask when our student athletes are playing sports, we usually just ask two questions: Can they play, and why aren't they playing? And unfortunately, a lot of the times, the questions in regards to their safety and things like that, we always ask from a reactionary perspective. I know when Jordan went down in 2018, our real questions really didn't start until we got into the emergency room. And the first question was more so what happened, but I didn't think to ask of, or we didn't think to ask of any emergency procedures, any emergency action plans that were put in place in the event that our child couldn't play. So when I wrote the book, Can My Child Play? Basically, it just really kind of, or when we wrote the book, it just really basically spoke to the laundry list of questions that we should have asked regarding player safety of our child before, the least concern should have been, can they play or can they not play? So we kind of started from there. From the book, kind of started its own conversations and how can we educate parents, coaches, and student athletes on player safety and self empowerment and all these different things that I thought we should have educated Jordan about. But hey, we didn't know what we didn't know. So my co-host this evening, as always, is Jordan's mom, Tanya Wilson, and basically what we want to do is continue to support everybody, and unfortunately our numbers grow, but again our main focus is to support one another because unfortunately we all know what we're experiencing and we all know the grief process and just this whole thing, and some of us are being more successful in regards to our advocacy efforts regarding this. So tonight's show basically, or I don't even want to look at it as a show, but tonight's discussion basically will really be to introduce everyone. And since Laurie is doing some really good work down in Florida, luckily, we've created a national platform. And basically, how can we really be more impactful? And the best way I want to tell everybody is if you want to jump in this advocacy efforts, and I'm sure most of us do, how do we make a difference and how do we prevent it from happening to someone else? Is to really, even at a grassroots level, we can be extremely impactful and we can talk and we can talk and we can talk. But Lori and I have done all the talking. And even though we want it, and the best way that we can make impact is to create legislation and law around these things. Because I want everybody to keep in mind that all injuries, you look at student athletes, regardless of whatever the sport, you can't prevent a torn hamstring, you can't prevent a ACL tear, you can't prevent a concussion, you can't prevent a broken bone or a sprain. However, you can prevent a heat-related injury. And this is 100% preventable. And the main goal is clearly there had to be some common denominator in all of our cases or we wouldn't be here. But these are 100% preventable. And how do we, in our children's name, make an impact? And that's really what I want to discuss this evening. And let's ask questions and let's roundtable. Laurie's gotten a bill passed in Florida. I got a bill, Tanya and we've gotten a couple bills passed in the state of Maryland. And the main goal is how can we sit here and get some bills passed, unfortunately, fortunately, in our young people's and our angels' names to make this impactful because it's so relevant. And I applaud every single one of you because we didn't have this support system early on. When Jordan passed, I didn't really have anybody to call. We called some people that, I don't even remember. It took Lori and I a minute to connect, but we didn't have that. So please take full advantage of that. We know what you're going through, and I think this is monumental alone. Monumental by itself, that everybody has just got this active in regards to the support system of this. So please, we give everybody virtual hugs. You're in our thoughts, you're in our prayers. Any type of support that we can give, you have it. Most of you all, like I said, we talked already. Please don't hesitate to call me. I will, show you the way. Guess what? Lori and I, we brainstorm consistently, and basically, we've kind of come up with a template of, it's no need to recreate the wheel to implement some policy and legislation. So I think that's really where we want to go this evening. So could everybody just kind of go around and introduce themselves, tell us who your child was, and Ashley, your picture keeps popping up, so we can start with you. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I'm Ashley Robertson. My son is Ruby Hidalgo. He just passed away this September, September 18th.
Okay, great. Mary Jane, you and I talked on the phone before.
Yeah.
Please tell us who you are. I know who you are, and please tell the rest of everyone.
I'm Mary Jane McNeil. My son was Rue McNeil, and he passed away on August the 24th of this year, also in Texas.
Okay.
And
Kim
can you
and
just say what sport he was playing, just so that we'll know?
It was football. He was
Okay.
at the two-a-days practice. It was right before school, a week before school started.
Okay, cool.
Of his senior, he was 18 years old. It was his senior year, and he had been playing football for 4 or 5 years. So
Yep. And please, I know these conversations can get emotional. So I mean, because we all feel it. We all feel the same thing, and we've all experienced what no parent should experience. So please, I know we may get a little wet-eyed or teary-eyed along the way. So please don't hesitate, because really that is part of the process. So Matt and Kim, you guys, since you guys are new faces, please tell us who you are and share a little bit about your story. And Matt Jr.
So our son Matthew Jr., he passed away June 16th of this year at soccer practice. It was the first day back after the extended layoff from COVID, and he died of a sudden cardiac arrest at the end of practice. I don't know, there's a lot more details. There's some information out there now that we've put out so far. And again, we're with everybody else. We're still kind of going through the grieving process. It's new and fresh. Just to give you a little bit of background, I know your son's story very well. As a matter of fact, his name was brought up in the hospital the night Matthew passed away. My father is the associate athletic director for sports medicine at the University of Cincinnati. So he knows your story very, very well. He's had athletes that he has saved from these situations. He's been in the front lines of this for a long time. And so unfortunately, I knew a lot more about this than I needed to know ahead of time, and knew what, it's a hard process, but, I'm hoping to help and join this, because I know my dad says from an NCAA level, your son's name is what resonates from a national level, to make sure that never happens again. And I really appreciate you letting us be a part of this.
Thank you. Hi, Summer. How are you? Come on, we can't hear you. Take your mute off. Summer,
Hi, guys.
Summer, we're just going around introducing everybody. So you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
My name is Summer Green, and my son is Hunter Midkiff. He passed away in August of 2020.
Oh boy, man. And Sophia, you want to share? Introduce yourself. You and Ryan.
I'm Ryan's mom. Ryan is right next to me here. He had a heat stroke, and he survived.
Right.
Yeah. So we're just here to see if we can help in any way we can.
Great. Tanya, you want to tell us who you are?
Oh, thank you. I'm Tanya, Jordan's mom, and I'm glad to meet everyone, but not in this circumstance. I'm sorry for all your losses. It's tough. It's 3 years for us, and still feel like yesterday. So it's a process. Hang in there. Oh, it's tough.
Lori, you want to tell us who you are, Lori?
Sure. I'm Lori Giordano. I'm Zach Martin's mom. And in July, it'll be 4 years since we lost him to heat stroke at summer football conditioning. And this past year, we finally got a law passed in Florida that mandates several different protocols to prevent exertional heat stroke, which includes having a system in place to monitor weather conditions where they're going to be practicing, that they have to have a cold tub, and what we tried, it also includes, let me just finish what it includes before I go off on a rabbit trail there. So it also includes protocols for schools to have AEDs, and to have staff train on how to use automatic defibrillators. The AED portion of that law goes into effect this coming June. They gave them a year to get training in place for staff. So as of July 1st, 2021, a law for Florida for high schools that are members of Florida High School Athletic Association to have AEDs will go into effect.
Thank you, Laurie. So guys, basically, clearly, and again, you know, you all are in our prayers. And I know earlier today, before the meeting started, I spoke with Laurie earlier, and as Laurie said, you know, we got a bill passed, actually 2 bills passed, and one in Baltimore City called the Jordan Mcnair Youth Safety Protection Act. And basically what that does is we partner with Parks and Recreation, and basically the same thing, just all AAU programs or anybody wanting to start an AAU program has to be trained in player safety, the use of an AED machine, cold water tub, heat stroke signs, symptoms, and prevention training. And basically this is, and something is along with the Department of Social Services as well. So just the signs, symptoms, if any young children are being abused or anything like that. So basically we got that tied into one bill. Then we had another bill passed, I believe it's the Jordan Mcnair Act in the state of Maryland. And basically what that did was, since Jordan was at the college level, and it's unfortunate because when your children are kind of going through, and then you see after the fact, you really don't think to ask them any questions beyond, you know, hey, are you okay? And, you know, we just don't get very definitive in our questioning. And it's just unfortunate that as we bring our student athletes up, we just kind of bring them along to be coachable. And we all know what coachable means. And guess what? You know, like they say, coaches coach and parents parent. And the higher level of competition they get, guess what? The further and further you get away from the coach. You know, we can just remember at AAU, we can be very vocal. And then, you know, as they go along, and in high school, we're vocal, but we're vocal in the stands. So you can imagine even when they get to college, you know, we really rely on them to communicate any type of uncomfort or anything like that. And Ryan's a testimony to that by him being at the college level. And the Jordan Mcnair Act, what that does is that gives college student athletes in the state of Maryland a kind of like an anonymous call. If they feel uncomfortable, they can call a number and, you know, tell them, hey, I'm uncomfortable. This coach is doing this, or this coach is doing that. But one of the main things is, you know, when we talk about law and legislation at Baltimore City, guess what? That's a municipality. So keep in mind that municipality, you go 10 miles to the right, 10 miles to the left, you could be in a different part. You may be in Baltimore County. So that same law may not apply. So as Laurie did in regards to is the Zach Martin Act, Laurie, I can never get the name correct.
Yeah, it's the Zachary Martin Act.
Okay. And I've read it a gazillion times. But even in regards to that, you know, the state law is where we make impact. Guess what? You know, I love, and Lori and I both share this, and I'm sure if you all get into advocacy efforts, I'm sure we'll all love or see the impact of making impact at the grassroots level. And what I mean by that is, hosting camps and education and talking to schools and talking to student athletes and coaches and things of that nature. But the main thing, and donating cold water tubs, and we've donated hundreds of cold water tubs. Laurie's donated hundreds of cold water tubs. But the main thing is, how do we ensure people exercise the value of a cold water tub? So what we've seen, and one of the things that, we thought about early on, we don't want to be sports specific centric in regards to the injury, because clearly, out of the many young people that we've lost last year, it was a tragic year in regards to that. They were across all the lines of sports. I noticed my audiences got bigger when I spoke to high schools, and basically we talked to the whole athletic program. So again, this can happen, whether it's track and field, clearly soccer, football. Hopefully Coach Belly get on. His daughter died in 2019. She was a basketball player that was practicing outside. We lost cheerleaders, and it's just unfortunate because this particular injury has no picks, and especially in regards to sports. So the main thing is, as I tell Patrice all the time, we definitely have work to do. And the main thing is, how can we effectively do it? And what I've come, and Lori, pretty much agrees with me, legislation and policy and legislation is the way that we make impact. And I know when I talked to Ashley the other day, was it you and Sarah I spoke to, Ashley?
Me and Holly.
Okay, Holly, you and Holly. And when I spoke to you and Holly, and could you share a little bit about, you guys had said you had just advocated for let the players play during COVID, the week prior to Remy passing, am I right?
Correct. Remy and Holly both was it the week before?
Yeah,
Holly's
there
with
with
me right
you now? Oh, hey, Holly, can you slide over to the screen, please? I can barely see you. Okay, great. How are you?
now.
I'm good. Yeah, Remy and I went to the lesson play at the state capitol in Baton Rouge. And when we were there, we talked to a lot of state legislators, and Larry Freeman was one of them that stuck out that Remy went and talked to, because he asked Remy like 3 questions. Why are you here? Why do you want to play? And what can we do to make y'all play? He has children who play, or he has boys who play football too. So I've reached out to him, and Ashley and I are going to have lunch with him, I guess, any day when he's available, so that he can help us see where we can get on the state level. I feel like that's going to be our fastest way to get anything done, because he's already in the loop with all of it and already has all the contacts made.
Mm-hmm. Great. Wow, Holly, you look like you're all of 14 years old. Didn't you say you had 3 sons?
Thank you.
Golly, I thought that was your daughter there, Ashley. Wow. And again, guys, this is where we become impactful at. And again, I know everybody's in a grieving process. And like I said, just be mindful in order for us to really play at a national level and get recognized. This is what we have to do. It's easier to go into 52 states, or now Laurie and I, 50 states now. Is it 52 or 51? I get that wrong. Somebody help me. It's easy to go into 50 states, Matt, as opposed to trying to go through, let's talk at every school we can talk at, and that's fine. But the main thing is, for us to really be impactful, this is where we have to go at. And guess what? We don't have a problem coming into your state assisting you. I just did a conversation, a Can My Child Play conversations. I encourage everybody, just go take a look at it, because I knew we would have this conversation with one of Jordan's teammates and mentor and brother that he grew up with, that worked in the state capitol. He's in law school right now. And basically he interned at the state capitol for like 3 years. And we had a conversation last week, and basically we talked about how to get a bill passed, literally from the concept of the idea to the draft bill to literally getting it on the Senate floor, and or getting it on the House floor to the Senate floor to a bill being passed. And even we got a clip of those of us that may be over 40, that little cartoon that used to come on Saturday mornings, a bill is just a bill. We even got a clip of that on there as well. But again, and just to show you how it's not difficult at all, but again, it can be intimidating when you're trying to read a draft bill or something like that. And basically he gives us really the formula to be successful. And we have no problem coming in your state, supporting you, getting behind you, beating the pavement with you, because I think that I know that sports will resume, I guess, once enough of us get vaccinations. And guess what? Let's try to have a better year than we did last year. And it was just like, and Matt, you said it, we've made some type of, had some success just because we didn't lose anybody in 2019 and 2019 and 2020 at the college level. But what about last summer? And we're still losing high school kids, and we're still losing our young people. So clearly it's some work that really needs to be done. And as opposed to, and now we may have a national voice, but guess what? The same way Laurie has maximized her at the state level, guess what? I believe all of you, when you're ready, you can do the same. And guess what? I think that our children that, our angels, guess what? All of their names have relevance. And guess what? That's how we keep their legacies alive, by let's get bills passed in their name. And I know it may be heart-wrenching and everything like that, but again, this is how we make impact. And this is really how we do it. And guess what? We have no problem coming in, and guess what? Matt, we'll come into, hey, you guys in Kentucky, guess what? We'll come into Kentucky and support. We'll come into West Texas and support Mary Jane, even though I know you got a city of a community of only 1,200 people. Are there any hotels there where you guys at?
My community's less than that. It's about 200.
Any hotels there?
No.
Okay, well, they
No.
may be asking
You're about
you.
50 miles away from a hotel.
Okay, well, you got an extra room, because we'll come.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, yes, ma'am. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Hey, look,
That'll work.
That'll work. Okay, I could use some Texas cooking somewhere along the way. And clearly, in Louisiana, that's what we have to do. I mean, we definitely have to get some things done in Arkansas. And Summer, you're in Arkansas, correct?
Well, I actually just moved, and so now I'm in Southeast Missouri, but it's right on the border of Arkansas. But yes.
Okay, great. I mean, and keep in mind, family, we have no problem coming in, and that's really our goal moving forward. The main thing is, let's put a realistic plan together, because we need to get it on the process of the draft bill, or the idea. We already know, look, we already got a plan to do something at the AAU level, to do something at the high school level. And one of the main things I want to emphasize to everybody, like, it's legislation time up here for us. And one of the things that, we have to be mindful not to let our children's names be used from a notoriety perspective. So even with us, we had Patrice and I had a meeting with a delegate, and Tanya and I testified last year in regards to quite a few bills with Jordan's name attached. And for some reason this year, they want to attach Jordan's name to the players getting paid for their likeness, but it's not consistent with our missions. And therefore, I basically let the delegate know the other day, like, if it's not consistent with our mission, you can't add Jordan's name to this. And let's be mindful of that. And I think that us being in this position to have passed some legislation, these are the things that we can be look out for, that somebody's already experienced this. And again, if our missions align, this is what this is. I can't tell you what not to do, but I didn't want to attach Jordan's name to anything about a college player getting paid. So what we did was, it was like, okay, let's have a reciprocal scenario here. I sent our bill in Baltimore City. I sent Laurie's bill at the high school level, and we sent them like, look, if you can put these two together and attach this to this particular bill, we'll support it. But beyond that, we're not going to support the bill. Because again, what does that have to do with the health and wellness of player safety? And right now, I think that this is a great time, because keep in mind, we're dealing with COVID. And much as I like sports, guys, guess what? Even at a high school level and a college level, much as I like watching college football, guess what? The NCAA, Matt, only has a $10,000 insurance policy on every player in the NCAA. That's the value of a student athlete's life. So therefore, I can even imagine at the high school and the AAU level, what are we going to have?
There's nothing.
Nothing. Right.
Nothing.
In the state of Arkansas, it's $10,000.
The state of Arkansas, $10,000. Right.
I don't know.
In
that there's
Texas,
anything
it's
in the
like-
state of Kentucky.
You think when you turn your children over that they're going to come back safe. or at least somebody would be held responsible for something, and there's nothing. And that's what hurts the most. I think, you know, it's not a monetary issue at all. It's just that there is no regulation, you know, other than I'm sorry that
And
happened.
that's the last thing you want to hear. Yep.
Right.
That's the last thing you want to hear. And also, I think that I'm confident that, you know, one of the things, we never have to be in a situation where we don't know who to go after in regards to this. I feel as though I can say a little bit more now. For the last 3 years, you know, I was kind of sitting on my hands with my hand over my mouth in regards to speaking about our case and the legal aspects of it, settlement wise or whatever. But if you feel as though your child was wrong, and hey, let's, you know, we can give you some information or some strategy really to go after whatever you need to go after. And Lori, you know, Lori's had she has experience in that. Clearly Tanya and I have some experience in that. And, you know, please, I mean, don't hesitate not to ask in regards to that. I think that since this conversation would be recorded, I would just say, let's just talk off of here in regards to that. And at least, you know, but one of the things, keep in mind, I would suggest that anybody, if that is your case, if that is your mission to pursue any type of resolve and settlement wise, the less said, the better. The more information you have, the better. So don't jump out there too quick. Get all of your information first and get all your fact finding first, and then speak at the appropriate time. And that's when I think you'll have a level of success. And just get prepared to fight, because unfortunately, a lot of states, you know, how long did it take you, Lori? 3 years?
3.5 years.
Right. It took Tanya and I almost 3 years. And unfortunately, you know, we'll support during the fight, but it's just unfortunate that, you know, we don't allow it's just impossible for these wounds to even get a scab on them while you're trying to fight, you know, especially, you know, and I don't think anybody, the powers that be, don't understand that, because they're not in our shoes. And it's extremely challenging. But I think that just for me, the more work that I did and the more grief that I put, in my grief, the more work that I put in the foundation, that really kind of just really fueled us to make a difference. Mm-hmm. So again, we already know, I mean, if we don't, you know, grief can kind of consume us, and everybody has their process. So can we do a Q&A? If anybody has any questions, I mean, amongst each other, please, I mean, this is the time to do it.
Any questions?
So let me just jump in here too, off of what Marty was just saying about, you know, if you find yourself in this situation, the best thing you can do is get as much information as you possibly can. So if there are, you know, I'll just talk from my own personal experience. So we had parents that were texting us and reaching out to us. And there were people who said, hey, we have video of X happening. We have this, my child saw this. These are all things that you need to document, and just, even if it's just in one binder, write down names, phone numbers, things like that, because those things all became very, very important as we moved through our lawsuit. And in particular, there was a video that became really the center pin for our lawsuit. So all of those things, if they're available, you need to get them. And the reason I say that is not because I am pro lawsuit, because that's not what it's about.
Right.
And I spoke with Matt earlier today about this very thing, but I think it's something that bears repeating. We as civilians trust our local schools with our most precious possessions, and those are our kids. And when a person fails in their duties and responsibilities and will not be held accountable for those actions, then our only recourse is legal action to get those protocols and rules and systems changed. As much pain as a lawsuit inflicts on you yourself as a parent and on other people around you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You are making sure that this particular situation does not happen again, because we experience the absolute worst, which is losing our child. Somebody else may not lose a child, but there may be damage. There may be physical damage done to their child that they have to live with the rest of their life. So it's not just life or death we're talking about here. We're also talking about a life with an illness or
Yes. Disability, right. And then there's still no responsibility on the other party.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, as far as
that's, and so I possibly need help along those lines, because what I run into is that it's a Texas thing, that there's some sort of Texas, like you can't do anything against schools nor emergency services. Nobody will touch it. I've spoken to 2 attorneys and they won't
touch it.
Same here in Arkansas. They won't touch it.
I will say, Kentucky, we're another case. There was a case of a boy who passed away in Louisville at a public school 2 years ago. And I know right now they're in litigation, but it has been, they're fighting in appeals and things like that for the same reasons. I will say we are on our second attorney. Our first attorney was a medical malpractice attorney who was looking at it more from medical, and that wasn't the route. That wasn't the correct route. Our new attorney is a litigator, because these situations aren't purely medical. These are negligence. So these are, these cases are different, and we're in the middle of that right now. We're in the very beginning stages of it. There's not much I can say, but I can say, it is hard. And that's one thing I want to do. We're working on setting up a foundation and things like that. And I was talking to Lori earlier about it. I want to be able to set up systems like this that people can come to so that we can collectively help each other as a group. To get, to give support to people so that we can find the right person. Maybe it's not right there within your city, but it's at least in your state of somebody that'll be aggressive enough. And unfortunately, the media plays a part of this. And, locally, we've been lucky. I had a reporter that reached out to me early on and wanted to do a story on this. And she already had, I couldn't give her any details, but she did all the research herself and found just through the what's open records right now, and did a whole reporting on that. Those are things that, not to use Jordan as a good example, but Jordan was at the NCAA level. That gets investigated by the NCAA. The KSHAA didn't investigate my son's death. I had to go out and find somebody to investigate his death and bring that to light. And that still might not see the light of day. I don't understand why at a state level, there is not investigative units or even a national investigative unit for student athlete deaths. There's no reason for that. You know what I mean? It's essentially all the burden of proof, everything has to be on us, and that's not right. And that's something I would like to change in the future, or help change. Collectively change happens when you get a collective group of people that want to drive that change. And it makes people nervous. Let's face it, You know, it's hard to be a coach today, you know, between parents and athletes and how everybody wants to be a star. And, you know, at the same time, are you going to drive away coaches and things like that by scaring them of not even wanting to do this? You know, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is teach people it's not that difficult if you are prepared for it. You know, in the state of Kentucky, they already have an EAP law that is mandated. They have AED laws that are mandated. And all those things, and this still happen, still not fixed. So it needs to be even more detailed, you know, and it is frustrating, you know, and it's something I think all of us could work together collectively on. I mean, we're spread throughout pretty much close to all 50 states to be able to do this at a state level. You know, I touch enough states, you know, we're in Missouri and Arkansas, you know, I'm in Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana, just here in the tri-state area, Cincinnati. You know, Ohio's laws are nowhere close to Kentucky's. There's no reason why I can't jump over there and help out. You know, those are the kind of things my goal is to do. You know, this is going to be what I want to drive myself to do is to help. You know, I can't save my son, but I can save somebody else's, hopefully, and that's my goal. And I think that's the way I'm trying to drive myself. Whether the legal side works itself out, I don't care. That's a separate issue, you know, for me. But if you don't bring these things to light and you can't file legal action, it's hard to drive change. You know, unfortunately, change is driven with the dollar value attached to it.
Exactly.
Matt, I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lori.
Did you have to contact your child's school board or school athletic association for them to investigate it?
No, we did the investigation ourselves. Again, I'm lucky. I'm unfortunately unlucky because of who my father is. So he and I did a lot of that initially ourselves. Again, he knows Dr. Casa personally. He knows there's another one who is in Maryland. You know, he knew who to contact. He knew who to connect with. You know, we were actually, you know, it was easier to do that part than it was to find the correct legal representation, you know, and then put them in contact with who we wanted to do. You know, my dad knows how to read things. So he looked at it from his level. If this would have happened at the University of Cincinnati, things like that. You know, our first group of attorneys got all the information. Like Lori was saying before, there's a lot of information out there that you can go get yourself. You know, it's not easy, but you can go get the 911 phone calls. You can go get things that are pertaining. Video is hard. You know, I've asked other parents, nobody had their phones out because it was just conditioning. You know, it wasn't like, you know, oh, this first practice, you know, hitting or dribbling or whatever. They weren't allowed to touch each other. It had to be somewhat separated because of COVID. Nobody had their phone out. There was 6 or 7 parents there. We've talked to some. One of the parents was a anesthesiologist who tried to save Matthew and did most of his care. So I've gotten a statement from him. I've gotten a statement from, you know, by the time the EMS was there, you know, I have all those reports and we looked at all that. I have my cardiologist take a look at it just as a friend to give me their interpretation of it so that I understood it, you know, because I can look at something, I don't understand it. And he, you know, I luckily have been able to do that. And one thing I want to do is be able to provide and help people do that. Who do you need to call? I can help try and make those connections, things like that, so that you can see, you know, here's what you need to look for. You know,
I gathered all those things too and have all that. The thing is, like I said, with Texas, the attorneys are like, we can't touch it. There's protection against the malpractice and the neglect of the school, the neglect part on the school and the malpractice part on the ambulance service. I won't go into detail, but you know, there were issues, you know, had they dunked him in the cold tub, had they, you know, the cooling, it just, you know, a lot of it was just not knowledge. So the awareness, yes, definitely has to be brought out, but that's, you know, where do you go from that when your state is protecting everyone? You know, that's though, you know, but like I said, it's not about it's not a monetary issue. It's just an awareness on everybody's part. You know, even the ambulance service, you know, wasn't aware enough of the whole situation of what was taking place, you know, with the heat stroke, you know, because he got put, you know, it was a record high that day, and he got put in the back of a hot ambulance that hadn't been in service. You know, so he went from being hot outside, not cooled down, to thrown in the back of a hot ambulance for an hour ride to the hospital.
Hey, Matt, Mary, thank you, Mary Jane. Hey, Matt. So let me ask you: was there a cold water tub on the field that day?
There was not. They also
Got it.
never took a core temperature.
See, I have a core temperature of before he started, and they said it was 100.3, but when he got to the hospital, it was at 105.8.
Yep. And let me say this, everyone. Clearly, there's a need for what it is that we have to do in regards to, you know, you look at a Texas, you look at a Arkansas, and Matt, you know,
Right.
you
There
look at,
needs to be something consistent.
right.
You know,
and the main thing is, and again, the main thing is, Lori, you and I just kind of talked about, you know, really sticking to our core mission. But clearly, you know, the main goal that we want to do is, you know, we want to educate, you know, we want to promote awareness, education, and prevention of this type of injury. But the main thing is also we want to prevent other parents from having to experience what we've experienced. So along these lines, keep in mind, everyone, you know, policy and legislation really is the way to go. And even in the states where we think it's more challenging, you guys, I remember speaking to a lady, her son died at Morgan State University right here in Baltimore City, not like 3 miles down the street from me. And the first thing that when I spoke to her was, I didn't know who to go after. So again, you know, these are things that, you know, we have to implement. And Matt, you just said it. I mean, we make out way better in groups. Our numbers now, let me tell you, I don't know if any of you all saw the HBO special. Lori was on one, but we were on one as well, Real Sports. And first thing came to mind, Lori, was class action suit, right? With all of the parents that had lost student athletes in the NCAA. And the thing is, keep in mind, and I'm not by no means. I'm not a legal beagle. But I do consider myself, I can read and comprehend things. But keep in mind, one of the main things that when you look at class action suits and things like that, you have a what's the time? What is it called when the time passes, Patrice?
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations, correct. Thank you, Laurie. And keep in mind, you have a statute of limitations in these type of things. Now, keep this in mind, by this being, I hate to say it, and I don't want to capitalize off of it, but at times we have to. This is how we make an impact. By this, all of these, unfortunately, all of our deaths that kind of brought us together within the last year. And keep in mind, this is only 8 people. This is only 7 people here. What about the other 7 to 8 that unfortunately passed across the nation? So again, if we can make impact, like you say, Matt, as a group, these are things that we may have to do. I'm gonna tell you guys, I know the work may be challenging, but it's gonna be much easier going into states as a group. And I guarantee you, if all of us sit here and if we all testify in support of one another, I guarantee you it'll be more impactful. If we're sitting here saying, hey, my son, my daughter, my son, and this is the things that we have to do. Because again, it hurts to say, I think that no matter what the case, there should always be some type of legal recourse. What protects us from the law? So again, I think that, you know, we just have to be a little bit more diligent. But again, I'm not, you know, I can't tell anybody what to do, but I know, like Matt just said, whatever we do, if we do it in a group, we'll have more leverage than just trying to do it as individuals.
Yeah. And you can do a lot of educating and a lot of advocating without compromising your particular lawsuit. So you don't have to talk about particulars of what happened that day, of failings or misses on the part of other people. You don't necessarily have to talk about all of that to talk about things that need to be put in place to protect other students. So that was a big piece of what we did, what Marty has done. You know, there's been a lot of education and advocating and donations without talking about the actual lawsuit. And, you know, really the media is your friend. And you just have to let them know beforehand, here's what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to answer questions about this, and I'm not going to talk about this, you know, piece of it or these details. We're only going to talk about the education piece and, you know, what changes need to be made and things that I want to see happen or that we're working on making happen. And any of you can do that without jeopardizing either a current lawsuit or even one that you want to have in the future. So I think that's part of what Marty's saying is, you know, be careful about what you say. If you have a lawsuit or if you plan on at some point in the future doing that. But there's so much more that you can do and say. And, you know, it's just a matter of becoming an expert on what you're talking about. And Marty has done that. I have done that, you know, just by reading and learning and talking to, you know, the other experts in this field. And it's not something that is pleasant, but once you become an expert in what you're talking about, then there comes a point where they start reaching out to you for your opinion on it. So these are the things that can really elevate, you know, what you may be feeling is like a small effort, you know, that doesn't affect very many people. It can multiply very quickly in that way.
Lori, I like to call it. I used to tell a lot of reporters, I could talk about the story. I won't talk about the case. It's a difference. Yep. It's definitely a difference. And in regards to the direction that we want to go in. But as I said, you know, this is the main thing. Like, we have to implement policy. And guys, let me say this, family. One of the main things, Lori and I have talked, we know the significance of talking. And the main thing is, you know, once we can get some application behind what it is that we want to do, that's when we can make a difference, you know. And again, just, you know, keep talking, and, you know, whatever we can do to show you the way. And hey, you know, I look, if you tell us, hey, you know, I want to donate 20 cold water, I'm just whatever's in our budget. But if you want to donate 20 cold water tubs in that community or whatever, we want to educate, you know, guess what? You know, we'll support you with that. We don't have a problem with that, because again, the main thing is, you know, as Matt just said, you know, we want to focus on how can we keep our young people safe. And I'm gonna tell you guys, it goes a lot farther than I used to think, that it was just, oh, we'll donate cold water tubs and that's it. No, now that this year in 2021, I think I've learned that the only thing people respect is law. Because guess what? We can go talk and we can donate cold water tubs, and, you know, what's going to mandate that somebody uses it? Like, what do you do with the information now? And that's really the main thing. So, you know, we'll come in to support, but hey, look, please don't hesitate. I hope that everybody will, you know, join our mission, and, you know, hey, let's do what we need to do to pass some law. And guess what? If everybody, this is what I think, and it's unfortunate that when you have foundations, it's always from a young person that's no longer here. But if we need to help everybody create a foundation, I have no problem. I mean, you know, you can definitely follow our templates. I mean, we'll definitely be a resource of information. I mean, as much as we possibly can, and just kind of, you know, show you how the correct way, where we've had some success at doing it. So, I mean, we welcome that. We'll welcome if you need some support in regards to that. Yeah. So
Marty,
yeah.
Sorry. With that,
Yeah,
like our school had the cold tubs. They had everything there. And that's my biggest fight with it is if they don't know how to use it properly or what needs to happen with it, that's where I guess the biggest thing for me comes in and pushing for her to be a bigger advocate about it. Because if they knew how to do it properly, it would have had a different outcome.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
and we have a certified athletic trainer at every single practice and every game.
Hmm.
On
And
site.
about 20 coaches.
And we have a staff of 20 coaches. Like, I don't know.
And they all saw Remy's progress because everybody, the kids and the coaches told me he ran his first lap, he was fine. He ran a second lap, they noticed he got a little slower. His third lap, even worse, until he started lagging to where it got to that point for them to say, Remy, come here, come see me, what's going on. And at that point, he was like, no, coach, I'm okay, I'm okay. And they're like, no, Remy, you need to come here, because his concern was, this is the week, we had the scrimmage game next week, and he was fighting for the top 5 position because he had a coach text him the Friday night before telling him, this is your shot. If you want it, you got to fight hard, work hard. You know, and anybody will tell you Remy was the hardest working player out there. He was the most dedicated. He would have done anything for this sport. And his last words before he collapsed was, Coach, please don't cut me.
Yeah, that sounds like Jordan. You know, they and it's unfortunate because our young people can buy into that. They can drink that Kool-Aid, and what they fail to realize is, like, if it don't work here, you're not going to live with coach. You are coming back home to mom and dad. So we're the ones that's going to support you all along, but it's hard telling a 16 or a 15 to a 19-year-old or 20-year-old that, especially when they're caught up in trying to please the coaches, their friends, and things like that. So we came up with another concept, and that was one of the things that even with Jordan, I taught Jordan everything that I thought to teach him in preparation for college and life, except for if you feel uncomfortable to speak up for yourself. And guess what? Look, I'd rather see you fight another day tomorrow if you go down today. But, you know, we have to basically let people, the whole education component is basically, it's kind of like Lori always says, you know, we all know if you're in a fire, stop, drop, and roll, because we heard it enough. And in this, when you look at this type of injury, you got to look at cool first, transport second. And we have to get coaches, student athletes, athletic trainers to know these basic things. Guess what? You're not going anywhere. I guarantee you, if all of our children, if there was a cold water tub on the field and they had stayed in the cold water tub long enough for that core temperature to come down, none of us would even be on this call. Because that was usually the one consistent thing. You pulled the kid out of the cold water tub too quick. Guess what? When you have a heat stroke and your body temperature goes, your core temperature goes above 104 degrees, that's the equivalent of your body being in a microwave oven. And the longer it's in that microwave oven, guess what? All your organs start to burn up. So that's how we go from a kid, that's how Jordan went from, hey, we got a healthy kid Tuesday morning, to Friday morning, Tanya and I, the doctor's telling us if we don't make a decision now, he'll be dead in 12 hours because his liver is 85% dead. Because he was on the field and his body was in a microwave oven for so long, or that length of time it took him to the hospital, and that length of time a child might have been in the ambulance going, or that length of time they pulled him directly out of the cold water tub. So this is where the education really comes in at, and the education is mandatory. But the thing is, you know, that's the part where we'll constantly keep having to educate our young people, and we got to educate parents. And so therefore we got to educate teammates, and we just can't leave it up to coaches. And one of the things, Holly, is that, you know, you would think that the average athletic trainer worth their salt would have known that. And look, we were at a Big Ten school, and guess what? As soon as I walked into the hospital, and I'm looking at 2 or 3 athletic trainers, and the second question I asked was, has this happened to either of you before? Watches. All of them said no. So at times, you know, I think that
No is
yep, all of them said no. And it's like something as simplistic as a heat stroke that could have literally been preventive. Clearly, they didn't know what to do. Now,
My dad,
and
for the last 10 years, It's happened at UC a handful of times.
Yep.
And you're never prepared for it. And by a
Yep.
handful of times, not necessarily all the way to heat stroke,
Yep.
but he's had one kid where they had to bring him back. And you don't prepare for it. And it's such a situation that, and like he said, the rules at the NCAA level in the last 2 years are completely different than they were before 2018. Completely different. He said it is so different today than it was in 2018 and before. And it's unfortunate that that's the situation. But hopefully it's, like a Corey Stringer situation, hopefully people recognize what's going on at that. But, the NCAA is still pretty big, and it's more than just Division I too. So the chances are still high. Again, there's no big national voice for youth sports.
We definitely have work to do.
Right.
Hey, Matt, let me tell you, keep in mind, how do you think I felt when I had never heard of Orion Swoboda? I had never heard of all the young people. I mean, I had never heard of the 30 student athletes that had passed prior to Jordan. Right. Now, and since we talking about the prevention, because it boils down to prevention. So Ryan, when you went down, did they have a cold water tub on the field?
No, they didn't. They had a tarp though that they used for
just as well. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Now keep this in mind, everyone. If you go to our website, Laurie did a 3-minute video that we posted. I'm in the process now of doing a PSA for player safety. I think it's AD, heat stroke, or something else. So and then another team member of ours, Dr. Stephen Horowitz from Team Safe Sports. He has we have a 15-minute video of his if you check our website out. And I mean, this breaks down everything. And keep in mind, these injuries never happen in a game. The likelihood of them happening are slim. When do they always happen? First day of practice. When they always happen, the first 2 or 3 days of practice. Ryan, when did you go down? The first day of practice?
Third day.
Third day. That first week, and Ryan, please don't take this personally, but I think that, we still have to kind of, coaches for some reason believe a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds or a bunch of teenagers, and everybody's saying, hey, coach, you might ask a kid, a coach could ask a kid, hey, have you been running? Are you prepared for this run today? Kid been drinking soda and playing video games all summer. So of course but again, they're not going to tell the coach that. So of course, when they come to practice, they aren't prepared. And I think that we have to stop putting that one size fits all workout on our young people. Guess what? A lineman like Ryan, guess what? He shouldn't be running with special teams are running. I've never seen a lineman, and this is my personal opinion, I've never seen a lineman run any more than 5 or 10 yards on one snap. And when you look at sports like soccer and all these things and lacrosse and all that, you're running the whole time. So I mean, we just have to educate more. But keep in mind, I don't want anybody to get away from the legislation part of it, because that's where we make the biggest difference at. And guess what? All of us can start talking, and we'd still probably never even get through half of our states if we just tried to hit school, AAU program. When we go at the state level, that's when we make the biggest difference. So if anybody wants to look at what we've done, but I mean, we can kind of go over it together. I mean, I have no problem, and I'm sure Lori's right there with me. We partners in crime, and guess what? Whatever we got to do to support. So everyone, any questions before we go? Because I know we could be here talking about this all night. I'm glad that you all joined us. Clearly, we got work to do. I know when it was a young man that went down, and his story was similar to Summers. I'm sorry, Summer. And who went in? Who was in the tub for 5 minutes before they pulled him out? Was that Remy Ashley? Right. So it was a young man, Gavin Class. He was at Towson State. That was 2014, right, Tanya? Yeah, he was Jordan was like the third person here that went through the whole shock trauma process. But same thing with Gavin. He was in the tub for like 5 minutes. EMTs came in, pulled him out. And guess what? His core temperature shot right back up. And this guy, he had a liver transplant, and his mom came to him and his mom came to see us in the hospital. And I think just seeing him still living, surviving, getting through this, it was such a shot of hope that I knew that, you know, I was optimistic all the way till maybe a day or two before Jordan passed. But just that alone, that support alone, like I know we'll always be connected to that family. And I just know that, you know, if once we work together, or I know we'll all be connected to one another, whether we like it or not. Our young people, our angels are looking down on us, telling us, go mom and dad, go mom, let's get some work done and do what we need to do. So I'm definitely feeling that we all connected, and we have, what's our acronym for we got work to do, Patrice? WGTD, right? WGTD. And so I'm sure you all get used to me hearing, get used to hearing me say that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Patrice, could you get everybody's information? And if nobody minds exchanging any information, Patrice can be our center point for that.
I think I have everyone except Holly and Kim and Matt. Everyone else I have.
Okay, great. So on behalf of the Jordan Mcnair Foundation, thank you so much for joining us as we pay tribute to student athletes lost to heat-related illness or injury. Please don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. If you'd like to view any of our webinar in our series, please go to our website and click the Jordan Mcnair TV.